As two players warily chase the infamous red dragon across a hill, one of them realizes that they're in the territory of the Akaban family. As the dragon nears their house, a short guy comes out and easily kills it with a slash of his sword as the two players realizes that he's Ikai. One of them tries to go back and accepts it as tough luck, but the other refuses to go back and defiantly tells Ikai to hand it over since it's their loot. He arrogantly refuses but tells them to come inside their house where his boss, Shiro, makes all the big choices. They enter and are greeted warmly by a girl and an older-looking boy named Mei, and Asuma, who heal their injuries and make them dinner. The two sit down at the table and meet Shiro a while later, who apologizes for Ikai's behavior and gives them the loots before teleporting them to the nearby city to save them the trouble. Ikai, who's in reality Takahiro, logs out for a while to go get food but ends up throwing it away after running into his younger brother, Asuma, and having a row with his father, Kojiro. He runs to his room and angrily logs into Planet, where he sees that a pirate airship is attacking their house and has destroyed Mei's garden. Angered by this, he swiftly takes them out in a single strike and starts wondering how they don't know anything about each other when Mei tells him that Shiro won't be able to log in soon since he's been hospitalized. Meanwhile, in the real world, Asuma knocks on Takahiro's door and lets him know that their father has been diagnosed with hernia and won't return home for a while. Undisturbed by this, Takahiro logs back in as Ikai, acknowledging that he and his real family don't know anything about each other's lives, while at the same time, Asuma and Kojiro log in as their characters, Asuma and Shiro. Shiro sees the declaration of war the pirates have sent to the family and decides to visit their headquarters with Ikai and Asuma to settle the dispute. When they arrive, Shigeru takes them to the Captain Pico, who tells Shiro to either hand over every dungeon in the Akaban family's possession along with Twilight Hill, the place they live in, or hand over Ikai, who used to be a former comrade of hers. Shiro remains unfazed and blows up the entire room and flies away after saying that he'd never sacrifice a member of his family. Later, they all set up a barrier around Twilight Hill, helped by the presidents of Granada, Leon, and Satsumata, and return home but find that it has been completely destroyed. Angered, Ikai runs towards the shattered debris and swears to kill all the pirates. Meanwhile, Leon and Satsumata visit Pico and provoke her into ending the war since it could have an adverse effect on the game's society and Shiro, but she slashes his head off and announces that the pirates will be dedicating all their efforts into killing the Akaban family. As she's leaving the room, Shigeru asks them if their plan is now fulfilled as a severed Leon starts smiling. Meanwhile, Ikai accidentally finds a black feather in the wooden remains and they all abruptly turn around to face the black bird known as the end goal for Planet, and a foe that will award the player 300 million yen in real money if they are able to kill it. They start fighting it and realize that it's taken the form of the red dragon Ikai recently killed, so Shiro tries to take it down in one blow, but is unable to, after which Ikai activates his attack and has Mei power it up before aiming at the dragon's neck, known to be its weak spot, but as he attacks it in mid-air with Shiro, it doesn't get affected and tries to crush Asuma and Mei beneath its feet, but throws Mei away and gets forcibly logged out. After realizing what's happened, Shiro forces all of them to log out as quickly as possible and contacts the company Gleam in the real world before telling them to track down A's player and get him to a hospital as soon as possible since Operation Goodnight World has begun. Meanwhile, Takahiro hears Asuma calling him and reluctantly rushes over to his room, where he finds him lying on the ground before looking up and disbelievingly seeing that he's the real-life player for AAA. Deciding to ignore it for now, he quickly calls an ambulance and takes him to a hospital where the doctor assures him that there won't be anything life-threatening happening to him. He tries to talk to him, but Asuma reluctantly answers that he's playing to look for a friend and isn't like other gaming needs. He goes back home and sees that his entire computer system has been hacked and doesn't let him log back into Planet. Angered by so much happening so quickly, he fixes the coding and refreshes it, remembering the lessons his father had given him before logging back in as Ikai in the game. As Ikai logs back in, he sees an army of pirate ships in the air, where Pico asks Shigeru about his real life, but he seems vague about it, so she tells him that her final goal isn't catching the black bird, which is why she wants him to become the leader of the pirates. He happily agrees and the two shake hands as Pico transfers the guild master position to him before heading to the ground to fight Ikai. As they begin their battle, he becomes impressed by her 2,000 plus points and she happily sees that he was able to collect all 82 swords he had sought to find. Meanwhile, Asuma gets visited by a mysterious woman who doesn't talk much but tells him to not mention the meeting to his father and wishes for him to get well soon before returning to an office, where she approaches Kojiro and tells him that Asuma is a government employee aged 29 living in Saitama. Back in Planet, Ikai defeats Pico and asks her to form a party with him so that they can go hunt the black bird together, and she happily agrees. As the two are looking for signs of it in the forest, she asks him to join the pirates, but he declines and says that she should join the Akaban family, to which she tells him that the pirates aren't just some random players but people from different conditions who enjoy working together with each other. Hearing this, Ikai inwardly admits that he wants to meet her in real life just like she does. Meanwhile, a pair of pirates are informally chatting with each other when Shigedora announces that he always despised the way Pico lead the pirates and kicks them both and Pico out from the team. Enraged, the pair tries to attack him but get defeated by Leon and Satsumata, who land beside Shigedora as he announces that the pirates have officially been disbanded. Shigedora kicks all the members out from the pirates and says that his real goal is the 300 million yen, so they angrily ask Leon why he's partnering up with him, to which he gleefully replies that it's because he loves the game. Seeing that she's been exiled from the pirates, Pico angrily lands on the ship and asks Shigedora what he's trying to do, so he happily explains once again that he was in it for the money. Once he gets it, he'll log out of the game forever and will bury himself in women and gold. She asks him to not log out of the game regardless of his motive, which surprises him for a second before he tells her that the virtual world can never be something to get attracted to, since real life is the actual way to spend life. Ikai suddenly arrives and tells him that people like the virtual world because of the fact that it's better than whatever is out there, and blows up the entire ship. As they're falling, Leon uses his technique to stop it in midair as Shigedora wields the guild weapon, the Pirate Centurion. Ikai starts fighting him but seems to be at a disadvantage until he uses his macro swords to lock him and his bulky armor in place, unable to move. Pico tells him that she can defeat it by destroying the guild flag, as he says that he's been overly attached to the game or else he'd have met her in the real world long ago. Hearing this, Pico hurries to the captain's cabin to destroy the flag and disable the guild weapon, but as she enters the room, she's abruptly greeted by Shiro, who's already there. As Sakurai goes to school, her mother tells her to come straight back home when her classes have ended, to which she reluctantly agrees. As all the students leave after school has ended, 3 girls ask her if she wants to go hang out with them, but she receives a call from her mother and declines. Later, as she's walking down the street, she sees a cat looking at her and reminds her of Ikai, so she follows it into a park where her friends ask her if she wanted to go hang out with them now, to which she agrees. Later, during evening, as they're eating crepes with each other at a rooftop, she inwardly tells Ikai that the real world isn't as bad as people might think. Back in the game, Shiro cuts Pico's hand off as she asks him what he's trying to do and says that she's the only one who can save Ikai from himself, but Shiro stops her and says that she's just a power source, an AI. He tells her that he created the ultimate AI, the Black Bird, and set up multiple cores to power it, which is why she's one of the strongest cores since she fed it the emotions of 3,000 pirates. She tries to attack him, but he slashes her leg off before listing down the type of life she lives, her hobbies, and her name in the real world, and explains that Hinoka Sakurai is the name of his former subordinate's sister whose memories they digitized to create her, an AI. She tries to log out, but he tells her that she's never left the game since the real life she always lived was also just an AI set up for her. He burns her body, and once its damage level has exceeded 100%, uninstalls it, just before she disintegrates into nothing. Pico says that she loves Ikai. As Ikai slowly dies from Shigedora's fatal attack, he starts wondering what Pico ran into that stopped her from destroying the flag. Once all the other pirates are killed, Leon summons the Black Bird, which arrives in its true form and grabs Shigedora before plunging down from the sky. He hurriedly logs out and returns to the real world, where he tries to log in again after recovering his wits but is unable to, so he decides to go to an internet cafe, but receives a notification saying that the endurance test will now commence just as he gets hit by a truck. He wakes up again in his room before dying from a fire that broke out in his house, and then wake up again before getting murdered by his neighbor, who repeatedly starts stabbing him. As test after test goes by, he keeps dying through different ways before his mind gives in and dies in his chair. Meanwhile, as Ikai is walking through the town, he kills a group of people gossiping about how the guild master for the pirates deserted her friends before deleting her account. He logs out and runs out of his room as he admits that the real world isn't as suffocating anymore. Takeiro's mother embraces him from behind and slowly takes him to the kitchen as he asks where she was. She tells him that she's an internet cafe refugee and cooks him croquettes before getting ready to leave again. He informs her that Asuma and his father, Kojiro, are admitted at the hospital, so she starts worrying and asks if he wants to visit them with her, to which he reluctantly agrees. They reach the hospital and politely open the door to Asuma's room to greet him first, but are shocked to see him lying on the bed with his eyes hollowed out and pitch black. The doctor comes over and examines Asuma before saying that he must have ruptured some veins in his eyeball, which isn't that uncommon. Once he's woken up, Asuma apologizes to Takahiro for what he said the other day, and admits that he loves the virtual world of Planet. Hearing this, Takahiro goes ahead and tells him that he's actually Ikai, so they both decide to head home and raid some dungeons. At the bus stop, he happily goes to get some change for the fare while the woman who visited Asuma before, Kemuro, approaches him and warns him not to log into Planet again for his own good. They reach their house and Asuma enthusiastically proposes that they start playing immediately. But Takahiro tells him that his headgear is broken, so he goes to check and tries to wear it to log in, but suddenly sees the black bird and dies. Takahiro rushes over and hysterically tries to bring him back, but Kemuro enters the room and tells him it's no use since he was attacked by the black bird, which is also a real-life virus that murders the human brain. Suddenly, Asuma moves his fingers and tries to get up, so she asks Takahiro if he's willing to sacrifice his life for his younger brother. He says yes without hesitation, so she takes them both to her office and sends him to the place Asuma is trapped in, where he shows up as Ikai and kills one of the black birds before the other one latches onto his heart. He quickly uses the words "Hello World," which was an attack Kemuro had given him, and manages to immobilize it for a short while before bidding a tearful goodbye to Asuma, who tries to call for him and bring him back as well, but returns to the real world. As Asuma wakes up, Takahiro quickly grabs his hand in relief and explains that Kemuro was the reason he was able to make it out alive, since she created an AI replica of him and sent it to that world to save you from the blackbirds and then die. On their way back, she tells them that Kajiro, their father, was the one who created Planet along with the black bird and the world it takes its targets to, the birdcage. He later got into a disagreement with his superiors and was dismissed, which is why he's now trying to take the black bird down and stop the killing spree. Meanwhile, Leon and Satsumata visit the board meeting of their company, Granada, where he admits to them that Satsumata is in fact an AI he encountered years ago when he was a child in Planet, and made it so it could have a physical body like humans. He empathically asks them if they've ever disliked him, to which they reply that they haven't, so he announces that he's going to turn him into a human by redefining the definition of a human being and unleashes the black birds on them and in the whole world. At the same time, Kemuro drops them at their home and is about to leave when Kajiro approaches them and finds out about what happened to Asuma. He tries to get his sons to listen to him, but Takahiro refuses to do so and runs away. Kajiro tries to give chase but is stopped abruptly when a short monster with a scythe cuts his legs off. Meanwhile, all over the world, black feathers begin to rain down as monsters are unleashed on the human beings. Takahiro disbelievingly recognizes it as a creature called Kaitachi from the game, so Asuma remembers its weaknesses and quickly defeats it. As both of them are wondering what's happened, Kajiro asks Kemuro to use a healing spell on him, and when she does, it causes his legs to grow back. They quickly go inside and see that creatures the likes of and much stronger than Kaitachi have been released into the real world and unleashed on the humans. Kajiro explains that the black bird brought Planet into a simulated world and had every human on the planet forcibly log in, which is why they're basically in the game. They see their mother, Miyabi, trying to hide from a giant cyclops, so Takahiro and Asuma leave him behind and run to her aid. They rescue Miyabi but are about to get crushed beneath the cyclops' foot when Kajiro comes flying and kills it by using his signature move from the game. He tells them that since he created Planet, it took less than 20 minutes for him to gain powers. But Miyabi suddenly starts seeing visions of her dead daughter, Aya, so he tries to get to snap out of it while Asuma tries to stop him from hurting her, but Takahiro abruptly stabs him from behind before Kemuro asks them to stop and says that they should try to be patient with each other since they were able to live so happily as a family in-game as they find out that Miyabi was Mei. Suddenly, Leon and Satsumata arrive and say that since all the AIs were killed to shut off Blackbird, they'll kill all the developers of the game to stop them from doing anything before they kill Kemuro. Kajiro tries to desperately heal Kemuro but is unable to do anything, so he angrily rushes towards Satsumata, who flicks him away with his finger. The next day, Asuma visits him in his house and tells him that Takahiro and Miyabi have moved to a safe house after they bury Kemuro's body in the backyard. Kajiro decides to go visit them, but Asuma stops him and says that Takahiro is heavily devastated right now because of the fact that Shiro was the one who killed Poco, and because of the death of Kemuro, so he agrees and gives Asuma a small phone to give to Takahiro to open when he sees his face. As Kajiro watches Asuma go, he transforms into Shiro and gets ready to go face Satsumata. Meanwhile, back at the safe house, Asuma tries to give Takahiro the phone and tells him what Kajiro said, so Miyabi adds that he always needs some sort of filter to be able to express himself to his family, which is why he sent the phone. Shiro enters a complex where supporters of the newly found Granada Kingdom are devotedly listening to Leon's speech and makes them scurry away with one look. He faces off against Satsumata, who asks him why he doesn't have a proper form like other AIs, so he answers that he was just made as a vessel for data, nothing else. Satsumata appears in front of him and Shiro gets ready to use his trump card, the Goodnight World, but gets stopped as Satsumata gets ready to kill him. Back at the safe house, a message appears on the phone asking if they want to uninstall Kajiro Arima as several ghastly faces start rising out of the walls and ground. Kajiro has also transformed into a disfigured monster much like Satsumata and says that they'll both be ending this broken world together as he sees that Kajiro has turned himself into an entity that'll destroy and devour everything and thus save the humans. Meanwhile, the phone starts showing a message from Kajiro asking Takehiro to click on yes since he's the only one he can trust as more and more faces start appearing. Takehiro understands what's happening and explains that he entered a bug in the system to shut it down. Refusing to go through with what he wants, Takehiro runs outside and rushes toward where he is. As he nears the building, Leon tries to stop him but he deflects all his attacks and heads for the portal Satsumata and Kajiro had opened with him, while Kajiro tells Satsumata that the original name he had always called him by was Aya, the name of his long-dead daughter who became the victim of his ego so long ago. Suddenly, Takehiro and Leon enter through the portal and try to pull them back, but he convinces them that this is his endpoint and hugs Satsumata, who's taken his true form of Aya, as they both say goodbye and delve into the darkness. The AI Takehiro, whose heart is latched with the black bird, is slowly walking on a bridge when he sees Hinoka Sakurai before they both rush towards each other happily. 8 years later, Asuma and Takehiro reach the hill in Hokkaido that Twilight Hill was taken from and happily decide to build an actual house there before going back to get some ramen for themselves.